This time on StandardBred.
Incredibly, when we arrived there, we didn't have a book, we didn't have a catalogue, and the horse, I said, what lot is it? And he said, I don't know. So we managed to grab a book, and she was literally walking into the ring as we arrived.
The business and back paddock yarns behind Breckon Farms.
I don't mind a punt, to be fair, and Mark Purden winked and went past. He said, I hope you're still putting it on. And I said, you're fair dinkum. He said, he's going extra.
StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand StandardBred breeding and racing industries.
We're a bit lucky to actually even buy her. Somehow we got the times mixed up. We thought the auction actually started at 12 o'clock, so just by sheer fluke we made it in time. We actually forgot the checkbook as well, so we had to go back and get that. When we arrived, it was up to lot 63, so we didn't even have time to register. In fact, we didn't even know what we were doing, just thought we'll put the hand up and see how we go. Peter didn't even realise we had it. We started bidding against each other there, I think, for a while.
Well, I can tell you we had a big blue on the way. It's a story that I'll never forget.
Even if you've heard it before, Ken Breckon can tell the story of how he and his late brother Peter came clumsily into StandardBreds, like he's recalling it for the first time 20 years after that drive to Karaka, the day of the Yearling sales.
We'd had a blue, well, one he'd had a late night. We were both single at the time, but he'd had a huge night, and I'd had to drag him out of bed. There were days when you didn't have credit cards, and I can remember halfway to the sale, he said, have you got the checkbook? And I said, no, you've got the checkbook. And so I was trying to punch him while I was driving, as brothers do. And he'd built me up for this day. So, I mean, it was more him that wanted to get involved in the game than what I did. And he was a great guy for convincing people, I can tell you. So anyway, we ended up back home, and I felt flat, and I said, I'm not going back, it's not meant to be. So he'd pulled himself together, well, a little bit anyway, and so off we went again. We trundled back. Incredibly, when we arrived there, we didn't have a book, we didn't have a catalogue, and the horse, I said, what lot is it? And he said, I don't know. So we managed to grab a book, and she was literally walking into the ring as we arrived. Lot 68. So we went up there, not registered, never been actually to an auction in our lives before, didn't even know what registration was. But anyway, the auction started to take place, and I started to bid, and he was still had a bit of that brown stuff in his veins, and he was bidding as well. So they stopped the auction midway and say, hang on, are you guys together? What's happening up there? You're bidding against each other, you're together, what's going on? So I don't say, just keep right out of this. So he was hanging on to my arm, as the bidding went on, and the hammer finally came down, I think at 35,000, and it was a lot of money. A lot of money today, was a bloody lot more then. And he said to me, have we got it? I said, we've got it, I'm telling you we've got it. No, we haven't, you missed it, you mug. I said, we've got it. So the guy comes over and says, well, what's your registration number? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. What's that? So we haven't got a catalogue, we've got nothing. He said, no. He said, you need to have registration. I said, no. And he panicked. He said, look, you don't have to come back with me. He said, this horse might have to go through the sales ring again. So his brother again starts abusing me, don't know what I'm doing and all this other stuff. Well, I said, well, hang on here. So I go, I'm going to give him another fisticuff. So we ended up back in there and into the registration room, and it seemed to take forever and a day. And a guy finally comes out and he said, oh, someone here hasn't registered. I said, yeah, that's us. And he said, oh, okay. He said, just registered here. He said, what lot have you bought? And I said, oh, lot 68. So he flips to 68 and he stops in his tracks and said, am I on candid camera? I said, why are you on candid camera? He said, have you bought lot 68? He said, are you having me on? I said, look, mate. I said, I've been told here to come and get registered. I don't even know what to do with this horse. I said, if we bought it, I said, I don't know how to take it home. Do I hire a horse float? And I said, and if I do, I'll take it home, I'll tie it to the clothesline. I said, I don't know what to do with it. So he really does think that something's going on. And I said, there's nothing going on. I said, I need to get registered. And I said, what do I do with it? And he'd already previously said that's right, to just go down to the ring, there'll be someone there training it. There'll be a trainer there. Well, next minute he panics. He said, don't do that. Don't do that. he said, I'll organise someone, and that's actually where we met Roy Purdon, I think back then, where Roy Purdon was involved, and Mark, and that's what happened with it. So we never ended up taking it home. We never ended up taking it to the clothesline, but I can tell you it broke me toe, because it sort of stood on it when we were getting the photo taken, and my brother kept saying, I told you I'd get you in the paper. I said, not like this, you mug. He meant in the results. It became a big story, and Aussie picked up on these two clowns. They'd gone to the sales, that outbid the Aussies, the two Blues brothers, and so the whole story, you know, it got followed, and the great thing was it ended up being 2-year-old of the year. So it was a lot of laughs, I can tell you, but in the end we ended up having a huge crowd follow that horse.
But wait, there's just a wee bit more.
Of course, it leads on to the next story. We went the next year, and I think we bought Tarina J and Diamonds and Gold, and so we really had the bug. We would end up with 3 of them, I think. She's a doozy. Well, that might have been a year later, but we went back to the sales, bulletproof. You know what it's like when you're single and young. And but again, we just had a bit of luck. You know, they weren't obviously superstars like Maghera, but they were very good racehorses.
What a romantic start in racing. But the horse's honeymoon had to come to a halt.
Look, he was an outstanding colt, and was destined for the sales, and you know, we hadn't had the farm long there then.
It's called breeding.
Mark Purdon came down. He was very keen, had been down earlier with a colt as a weanling, and had followed his progress.
Starting from scratch is another ball game altogether.
I got the devastating call from Sandy Yardley that he'd been caught in a fence. And so bad, at that stage Sandy thought he might have to be put down, so it wasn't happy times early. And I can remember calling Mark Purdon, and you know, he was also devastated to hear the news, and he actually came down again just to view the injury, and said to me, look Ken, obviously it can't go through the sale, but he said, look, I'd really like to take that horse under my care, and he wouldn't let that horse out of his sight.
So now for the doozy about the trotter who went from death's door, then last to first in a single season, right?
Look at that.
StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand standardbred breeding and racing industries.
The amount we've lost over the years is phenomenal. He's fogged it.
Look, it was a long, slow progress, and you know, it took him a while. In fact, it was late in his 3-year-old season. He squeezed in. He had a win. I think Blair Orange drove him, and little Brett Cousins had to win on the horse to have the horse qualify for the Jewels at Ashburton, and he snuck in by a few dollars. And Tony Hurley drove him that day. Mark Purdon was engaged with Pokaro, who ended up winning the Jewels that year. And sadly, it wasn't me, and he ended up second to last, I think. Well, last. Tony Hurley got off the horse, and he said, I've never had a horse, Ken, try so hard. They're going 1,000,000 miles an hour with the legs, but the head couldn't keep up. Yeah. He said, this horse will go a long, long way. So it just again shows you these guys, these top trainers, do recognise a good horse when they're on them.
From about the Harness Jewels 4-year-old Trot Ruby a year later.
That was one of the greatest days of my life down there, because we had so much faith in the horse, and of course with what he'd gone through.
An unrelenting winning sequence, money by the million.
Because we celebrate harness racing here with the first of our Inter-Dominion Grand Finals. The trotters are up in behind the mobile arm. Let Me Through is our favourite, $2 to win, $1.30 for the place. The call of his first Inter-Dominion Grand Final, here's Mark McNamara.
Thank you, Mark, and 2,700 metres we're running for this.
I don't mind a punt, to be fair, and in those early days, early times when the futures betting came out, he was playing pretty good money. And so I was putting a few dollars on, and I think the semi-finals we got beaten convincingly by Let Me Through. His nemesis there at the time, or we thought it was, and I felt sick about it. I thought, well, that's not good.
Let Me Through's going to follow him up past I Can Do's at the middle, and Dr. Hook's on the markers.
It was great, that race. I didn't think he could win from so far back. It was huge. And I remember the comments Mark Purdon and I spoke about afterwards. That one driver made the comment to him, "You'll do good running second." He says, "Not a bad place to finish." So I think that sort of rolled Mark Purdon up a wee bit, and as well. And Mark Purdon winked and went past. He said, "I hope you're still putting it on." And I said, "You're fair dinkum." He said, "He's going extra."
I Can Do's it follows right on into the race. Stylish Monarch was held up, but the leader for home is Let Me Through. 3/4 in 1:30.8. He leads by a length on Radon going to second. I Can Do's it's coming up the middle. Let Me Through's in front. I Can Do's it is charging home. It's I Can Do's it and Let Me Through. 2 horse more than Stylish Monarch. I Can Do's it. Yes! I Can Do's it won it. And beat Let Me Through and Stylish Monarch. Mark Purdon, he's a genius. I Can Do's it. He's done better than that. He's done it.
You know, the other great story about this is that Ken Breckon, who is almost a symbol of the future of harness racing in New Zealand, has scored the win with this trotter.
The endless ride of a lifetime with barely a blip.
Well, except Mark Purdon had given us warning signs that the horse's legs weren't good. He used to whack his fetlock, and I can remember again Mark Purdon coming in one day covered in blood, and so it was a day-to-day proposition almost. We knew that his career wasn't far from ending, and just getting him to the races was getting tough. And we had vets, our vets here in particular, looking at him on a regular basis. It was a strange way to finish a horse which had such a great career, but hey, look, that's racing, and just a fantastic horse. 36 wins, 11 Group 1s. It's almost like having a cash register sitting at home. So it stopped abruptly, but we'd had a great ride. He'll always stand at the farm. What was incredible, when we brought him back here for his retirement, he walked in that paddock virtually without a lead and went straight back to the paddock which he had been raised in. What we found just absolutely incredible was he went straight to his sister in that paddock of 20 odd mares, and they've been great pals ever since. Just, nature's a wonderful thing. Huge heart. But like his owner.
To join the harness racing and breeding conversation, you can make contact with your StandardBred breeders associations across New Zealand. When this racing bug bites, win, lose or draw, but especially win, you're in it for life.
Well, it's always a laugh with my wife. It started off on a hobby, but I don't have hobbies.
Can a run like this continue? There are hundreds who tell you, no way. But if Ken Breckon's into it, you wouldn't punt against him.
People often ask, what drives me, and to me, it's not necessarily money at all. It's just about success and enjoying life. Yeah, we're about half an hour south of Hamilton, and I've got about 200 acres here, so it's only about an hour and 40 from home, from Auckland City.
Remember that TV ad for a shaver? The one where the guy loved it so much that he bought the whole company?
I was delighted and impressed. So impressed, I bought the company. The Remington M3 shaves as close as a blade, or now, I'll give you your money back.
Well, Ken's a clean-shaven, let's do some business kind of guy.
Yeah, well, look, I first met Sandy, as I say, through the sales back in 1996 when we bought Maghera, 1996, and it started again a love affair with the industry, and Sandy and Jan became very, very close friends of mine and my late brother Peter. So at that time I was doing a lot of travel down this way for hydroflow, and I would stay here every fortnight at the farm. And Sandy said to me, one day, look, the boys aren't that interested in his 4 sons in taking over the farm. Would you look at buying it? and perhaps having one of the boys run it. And look, I had the bug, as I say, bad, and a couple of wines with the wife one night. I said, I think we should have a crack at this. We could make something of it. So we poured a lot of money into it, but we absolutely love it, and it's good for my mind. I think away from hydro flow, having something like this is just wonderful.
So to the business of Breckon-made standardbreds and beyond.
Look, as I say, very tough to get the wife out of Parnell, but we will build here. We're intending to build a new stabling area next year and building up on the far side of the farm. So, just keen to promote it to our clients, to have people stay there, to come and look at the horses, and rather having to rush away to spend perhaps a night or two and enjoy what we've got here.
Looking out across his own backyard, which is a lot bigger these days, where many see a pea soup fog, Ken has a vision full of future for harness racing.
Look, it's a discussion we have everywhere. I think the thing that's really missing, and I know they're trying to address it, is stakes. And, I know trainers are struggling as well, with the price of feed, the cost, veterinary fees. It's an ongoing thing. Things go up. I'd like to see more involvement from the government. I think they underestimate what this industry generates in both of export dollars, but more importantly, how many people are employed by it, one way or another. Whether it's someone that's growing grain, or whether it's someone making saddle cloths, making the gear, and the people that are also employed on race day. Look, we're ambitious here. We're developing this farm. We love the industry. Yeah. We think the industry is going the right way today, but it's also important to bring in new people. Yeah, look, I think for everyone in horse racing, the costs are expensive. We've probably brought into the game probably 50 people. We've got a number of people trying to get into syndicates, but at the moment we just don't have enough horses for it. We've been very fortunate in these first few syndicates. We've had Group 1 winners. And of course the ambition is again to continue to do that and to attract, as I say, new participants, new stakeholders.
You can carry everything on
Yeah, we may, as an industry, lost a generation through I think a little bit of arrogance and ignorance, and so I think we've got to have facilities that appeal to the young, and we need to cater for them, and ask what they're looking for.
As long as they bring some enthusiasm and remember today's version of a checkbook, the next generation might never know their luck, especially if they bump into Ken Breckon on the way there. Like to know more about racing or breeding standardbreds? Find the New Zealand Standardbred Breeders on Facebook or go to the Breeders website. 1995 was a tough year trying to pick the best of the bunch for those Breckon boys. The 2-year-old competition at the track a year later included Christian Cullen's little sister, Kate's first, and Hall of Fame broodmare of the future, Excuse Me. Bred by the Yearlings on now Breckon Farms, Magira was made to be percentage perfect. One of the last crop by then National Bloodstock's Butler BG, and the 11th foal from broodmare Gem Aberfeldy. If they were winging it, the lads landed a beauty for their $30,000. Their first ever filly filled the trophy cabinet as a juvenile, overflowed it at 3.
Followed by Magira's in front and charging away now. Magira for Tony Hilly. Magira has beaten Kate first, sent third.
She started off as a great little horse. In fact, went on to be 2-year-old of the year. And we end up obviously with the racing bug.
A shy breeder of just 5 foals, Magira's only stakes performer is Dale Eleanor, whose Better's Delight daughter, Delightful Dale, has quickly produced classics colt Shandale. Dale's younger full sister, Karen Donna, has already produced Katy Perry, a smash hit across Australasia, winning the New Zealand Yearling Sales Series, the Breeders' Crown 2-year-old filly final, and the Australian 2-year-old pacing filly of her year title.
No, she was out of mare Karen Donna, named after the wife. Someone said to me, you shouldn't have sold your wife. Well, because we ended up selling her as a broodmare, and selling Katy Perry. So we don't get it right every time, but it's been a wonderful story for those people that bought Katy Perry, again running in Australia still today, and new people in the industry.
But thanks to She's a Doozy, trotters seem to be the bug for Ken Breckon right now.
Well, just going back, it was a bit of a battle buying her. There was a phone bidder, very good friend of mine and well known, of course, Gary Allen, and very tough at an auction when someone's holding the phone and you're unsure that there's actually someone there on the other end, but it was in fact Gary. And look, if my memory serves me correctly, I think brother and I were going to stop at 60, but he kept nudging me and we ended up at 71, which at the time was a record for a trotting filly. So we left with empty pockets, but a very well-bred filly.
Well, you've got, haven't you? You've got, see, the mother's a half-sister that I can do it.
Well, you've got the She's a Doozy, Love You.
Yeah, but then you've got this colt here by Muscle Hill.
Yeah.
And you've got I Can Do It by Muscle Yankee, and Muscle Hill's by Muscle Yankee.
And it's not only that doozy of an American family Breckon Farms is banking on either.
We were lucky enough to get Regal Volo, who in their first four foals, our 2010 has been 2-year-old, 3-year-old of the year over there. Highgate, 2 and 3-year-old in New Zealand. Regal Love's not far away from them. It's again the improvement in the breed.
The Breckon brand will have classic fillies from her in Alana Hall, Highgate and Regal Love by Angus Hall, Muscles Yankee and Love You respectively, to pick and price progeny from in the near future. Next time on StandardBred, the world's greatest stallion.
But when we purchased him, the Americans weren't that hot on the horse. His first crop of 2-year-olds, he was 7th on the size list. He had some of the best mares in America, and they thought he would do better.
And the horse Woodland Stud hope will be his biggest compliment.
It's not so much his pedigree; it's a complete outcross. But the fact, it's a good mare that he's out of. But more than anything, it was just such a super racehorse.
Plus, is this the most valuable standardbred foal on the planet?
The greatest thing you can do is breed a Group 1 winner. Whether you've sold it or you've raced it yourself, satisfaction's great. That's the name of the game.